Morena Tato, this is Jackie Hay from Creative New Zealand. I just want to say a very big warm welcome to everybody, especially those who've just joined us. We know that you've got very busy lives, so it's great to have you all attending. So today our webinar, the final in the series, is about running effective paid online advertising campaigns. This is obviously something that's very topical, and often it's really hard to know where to start and how much to spend and how to focus your online advertising. So I think this is a really fantastic topic for us to be exploring today. And we're very excited to have Rae Bassett, who is the Digital Marketing Manager at ACMN Marketing Advertising in Sydney. For those of you who don't know what ACMN is, it's Australia's largest arts and entertainment marketing and advertising agency. And as the Digital Marketing Manager, you can imagine that Rae has huge expertise in this area, so we're really delighted that she could join us today to present on this topic and share her expertise with us. So I'll just quickly remind everybody that if you want to ask a question, that you use the Q&A box for question and answer rather than the chat box, and that you ask the question to everybody. You can also ask a question by literally asking it rather than typing it in. So if you want to do that, just raise your little hand for a question, and we'll take those at question time. So Rae is going to start out talking about where sort of online advertising fits in the marketplace, what percentage of your marketing mix would be a good thing to spend on advertising, and then she's going to focus
mute on
bit, and then she'll take questions about halfway through. In the second half of the presentation, she's going to focus on social media advertising. So because she's going to have such fantastic things to say, I'll hand over to Rae immediately. Welcome, Rae.
Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, everybody. It's fantastic to be here today. I'm really looking forward to diving right in. So let's get going.
Mute off.
The basic outline, like Jackie just said, we'll have the first section, which will really be giving you an overview of the online ad marketplace, more about planning in the first section. So we'll talk a little bit about how it fits in your online planning, how you might go about that. I'll introduce the Google Display Network, talk about some of the targeting methods, and begin with a case study. Then we'll take some questions before we head on to section 2, which is a lot of case studies, which I hope will be helpful. Won't dwell too much on this, because Jackie just introduced you. So ACMN, we are Australia's largest entertainment and marketing and advertising agency, but we operate across Australia and New Zealand. So you'll see there are some New Zealand case studies in here. We have offices in Sydney, Brisbane and Melbourne. At the moment, I'm trying to think what we have in Market New Zealand. We have shows like Potted Potter in Market New Zealand. We just did Nutcracker on Ice. We did Jersey Boys in New Zealand as well. So I run the digital marketing team here at ACMN, which is a very, very small team, so we don't have massive resources, and it's probably not too different to how you might operate. Okay, so choreographing your online advertising, this is really how I like to think about planning an online ad campaign. So my focus today really is on those sequences of moves, the steps that go together, a few of my favourite dance moves, and how you might actually plan those things. Online advertising, I don't believe ever works well in isolation, so it's about how you actually include it and integrate it with the rest of your campaign, and some of those timings, so when you might do that. The online ad marketplace is very crowded. There's a bewildering number of websites out there. There's so many companies competing for your campaign dollar. Really today we couldn't hope to cover the full range of options available, so I need to focus on what's effective, since that's really the purpose of this webinar today. So I'm focusing on what's currently working for us. We're always trying new things and experimenting, but there's definitely emerging over the last 18 months some key techniques that we know reliably deliver results. You're not going to hear a lot today about traditional impression-based advertising, so traditional display in New Zealand Herald, for example. Although I do have one example to share. I have to admit that our results from that traditional model of online display have never been great. So we still include them sometimes, but we're doing it less and less. And I'll explain a little bit more about that as we move on. So let's dive in. First of all, let's look at the trend in online advertising at the moment. This graph here is an Australian one. I unfortunately couldn't find one for New Zealand, but my understanding is that in terms of the total amount in your country being spent online, it's slightly behind where Australia will be. So we're 23%, you might be around 20 or something like that at the moment. So you see from this graph that PwC Media are predicting that by about mid-next year, the amount companies are spending online will match that being spent on newspapers and free-to-air TV. So the marketplace is changing so very rapidly. That being said, it's not, I wouldn't be recommending straight away you dive into spending 23% of or 25% of your total advertising dollars online. That's a much more complicated decision and strategic decision. So we'll talk a little bit about how you might actually reach that understanding. So the top internet properties in New Zealand, this is Nielsen Net Ratings Top 10. There are a number of different companies that have their own version of the top 10 in New Zealand. There's Nielsen, there's ComScore, there's, I'm trying to think of who the other one is. They all have slightly different methods of calculating it, but the top players really don't change a great deal. So in terms of the internet properties in New Zealand, calculated by their unique audience, Google's at the top, followed by Facebook, YouTube, Trade Me, Yahoo, and then the MSN network. The picture of the top three is much the same here in Australia. I think what surprises me is that still so many people are spending their online dollars on properties that don't even rate on this list, such as, you know, a radio site or your press online channel. Don't get me wrong, I understand how this has come about. I think it's a result of solid relationships that people already have with account managers in news and the media vertical. But for us, we are spending our online budget in the top three properties here, so Google, Facebook and YouTube. Another great way to look at the top internet properties is to look more at the average time spent online. Why this gets interesting is that you can see there that Facebook has a huge amount of time spent online, which really gives them the opportunity to sell a lot more ad impressions and clicks. So in terms of the top impressions and clicks, display advertising space available for sale, then Facebook is definitely at the top of the list in this case. You'll notice with the largest
mute on
properties here, Facebook, the Google sites, and Microsoft sites, they're all what we call an ad exchange, or they offer dynamic bidding. So that is, you're paying cost per click for your advertising, so you're not paying based on the number of impressions that your ad will receive. you're able to
mute off.
So they all have sophisticated targeting tools, and they also have interactive ad formats. In New Zealand, so Facebook and Google are very strong there, but you will notice how good a place the Microsoft sites have. Now, understand that in November last year, Microsoft launched the Microsoft Ad Exchange in New Zealand, so they're beginning to offer real-time bidding to their partnered organisations. It's a similar situation here in Australia, so Microsoft Ad Exchange has been launched here. At the moment, we don't do a great deal with them, and I think that's just about mostly there's a limit to how many campaigns we can effectively manage. So we have to make decisions about where we want to build those relationships, where we're most able to target our audience effectively. In Australia, there are a number of other major players such as Adconian, ValueClick and Tribal Fusion. Adconian is certainly giving Google a run for their money here in Australia as an advertising exchange. So it'll be interesting to see how this might change over the next 12 months. I think it's very possible that some other players will come into the market in New Zealand. Now, thinking about the marketing mix. So if 23% of the ad budgets are being spent online, how much should we spend in the arts? The decision really depends on a number of factors. So the typical breakdown for all companies is 53% of that budget might be spent on search, 24% on display, and 23% on classifieds. Now, for us, classified advertising, that's not really our game. For campaigns at ACMN then, our total online spend as part of the marketing mix would be somewhere between 10 and 80%, which is a really broad spectrum, I understand. Just to, I guess, explain, it's really a strategic decision and comes about, first of all, based on research. So I'll talk in the next few slides about how I might do that research to inform that decision. We do initially, let's say we're working on something with an international brand like Addams Family the Musical that we recently launched here. Whenever we're starting a project like that, we will always actually go back to the marketing company on Broadway or in the West End, and or the touring company over in America, and ask them how much they've spent online in their marketing mix. It's quite interesting actually looking at those numbers and just how much more that they're spending every quarter when they tell us on online. So I've seen those figures grow from 7% perhaps 18 months ago to now 15% and still increasing. They're a slightly different market over there. I think we have interestingly, a much more internet savvy, heavily online buying audience than they do over there. But I think it's interesting to see what they're doing. So some of the research tools available. Facebook campaign setup I find is a useful starting point for some campaigns, and I'll explain and give some real examples of that. Facebook page search can be useful in understanding what social markets there are that you might be able to target. I use YouTube search, Google search, and Google rankings. So these are all tools that will really help me to make that decision. So just to explain how I might use Facebook, for example, the process of making a Facebook ad where you're actually setting those targeting criteria within the Facebook platform, I find a useful place to actually research audiences. So when I'm talking about a new show that we've got, I'll actually go into Facebook and start to create some ads. I don't care what the copy is. I don't care what the image is. What I'm interested in is actually going down to the targeting area and saying, well, how big is this market in Australia or in New Zealand or the geographic area I'm targeting? How tightly can we target the campaign? Is there unexpected potential in a particular area? So it's really like a brainstorming tool that I'll use to actually discover, well, what are the audiences, in this case, on a social platform like Facebook. So you can see here I've got some examples where I've gone in and said, okay, Legally Blonde, let's say I want to run a brand campaign. So it's very much targeted at people who are familiar with the Legally Blonde brand, who are fans of the movies, are fans of the cast. So I started to create a segment based on those criteria and came up with 58,000 people. At the moment, we also have another show. A funny thing happened on the way to the forum with Jeffrey Rush down in Melbourne. So I went in and said, okay, can we reach out to Jeffrey Rush's fan base on Facebook? How many of them are there? It's interesting, while he no doubt has a massive fan base in Australia, not too many of them have indicated that preference on Facebook. So I can only reach 18,000 of them. So sometimes the results are surprising. Sometimes you don't really get the answer you're hoping for. You'll see there the box that's outlined in red for 97,000 people. Now, this one was a huge surprise and a great opportunity. For us, we found that there were 97,000 people who liked Sir David Attenborough in Australia. Now, that was a campaign that we recently ran for Sir David doing live appearances in Australia. And we found, I can talk a little bit more about that later, that Facebook was without a doubt the most effective way of reaching that audience because we could very directly target people who were fans. So you'll see here that I start using Facebook to actually come up with an understanding of, well, okay, let's say in the case of Sir David Attenborough, wow, okay, we can reach this many people who are definitely his fan base on Facebook. Well, I'm going to focus my marketing mix on Facebook. So for Sir David Attenborough, we spent perhaps 80% of our budget there. Another useful tool is YouTube. So this is really just simply doing a YouTube search for related content. So for example, how many musical related videos are on YouTube in your area? How many Mozart related? How many stand-up comedy? How many of a similar show or a similar company or a particular theme? So I use that search to get an idea for, well, what is the video catalogue out there. Now, this will make sense a little bit later when we talk about YouTube advertising, because it's an opportunity here to actually place your advertising message near that video catalogue, so next to that video catalogue or over it. Then there's Google search. So how do you rank in terms of your key search terms has got to be a place you start. So do you spend dollars on brand keywords? So do you have to spend money on, let's say in this example, people typing in Addams Family the musical? Or is your site already ranking at the top for those search terms? If it's ranking at the top, then you know that you don't have to spend those funds on actually just the brand keywords, the foundation. I'd say this is probably where I start. In actual fact, I should have had this a few slides earlier. I'd start here and say, well, do we need to spend money on search? It's vital. It's essential. Couldn't possibly live without it. Do this first. Then whatever money is left goes to the other things that we've got. The other thing that's really important in doing this, this keyword search for your key terms is understanding, is there competition? So are there other people bidding for those keywords, because that will drive the price up. In most cases, for your very brand-based keywords, you won't have any trouble with that, but if you get into more, if you're looking for more generic keywords, say musicals in Auckland, live theatre in Wellington, then you might have a bigger problem there in price-wise. So now that I've answered some basic questions about where it sits in the marketing mix, let's move on to the campaign plan. So here's a very basic picture of a campaign plan. With your offline, so you might have TV, print, radio, outdoor, all the different things that you might do in your offline campaign. Online-wise, there are ad formats that work well at every phase of your campaign. So we're going to be talking a little bit about these and where they might fit in the cycle. Display and video work very well as awareness, particularly if scheduled alongside TV, for example. Search, I would say, is a foundation that runs through all of your online campaigns. So paid search is almost always there. And then social is great at both driving awareness and also return patronage. So let's talk first of all about the search component of that campaign. Here is an example of a search campaign that we've been running for Legally Blonde, the musical. You'll see here that we've split it, we've segmented the campaign into 3 sections. So first of all, we have the brand campaign, which is the brand-based keywords like Legally Blonde lyrics, Reese Witherspoon. Secondly, we have the cast campaign. So for this particular show, we have an all-star cast in Australia with people like Rob Mills and Erica Haimlatz, Cameron Daddo. So we're targeting people who are actually interested in that cast and are searching for them or the shows they might have been in. And then thirdly, we have an awareness campaign. So search can be used equally well as brand and driving people who are already aware of your product and are searching for your website just to go and purchase or discover more. It can also be used as awareness. So we often will spend money on generic keywords like Sydney musicals, what's on in Sydney, Broadway tickets, any of those generic words that are indicative of someone who may be interested. Now, we pay a lot more for this awareness campaign section of our Google search budget. Now, I think this is worth keeping in mind. Always split your search campaign into different segments, as we've done here. It allows you to really optimize the budget and also the ads for each of those different markets, creating multiple ad versions under each of those segments. The main reason for splitting them is so that you can actually control the bidding. So in Google search, for the awareness campaign, because they can be quite competitive, those generic keywords, the cost per click bid price can actually go quite high. So we might be looking at, in Australia, $4 or something per click, which is incredibly high. So it's very important that you split out that into a separate campaign so that you can control the cost per click bid limit. Always set a bid limit for those more competitive keywords. You'll also see here that in the example of the ad, that I've set up what's called site links. So site links within your Google search advertising are very effective. So we have the main call to action is clearly just the website homepage, legallyblonde.com.au. And then at the bottom there you can see we also have links direct to the tickets page, travel packages page, our about page and videos. You do still pay for anyone who clicks on any of those sublinks, but it increases that click-through rate. And also, I think it's a useful tool for people to actually get directly to, in this example, for example, the tickets page, take them straight there. If all they want to do is go to the website and go straight to purchase, they've already decided they want to buy, then get them there as fast as you can. You'll also see here with these 3 segments of campaigns for Legally Blonde that we've also set 70% desktop and 30% mobile. So within each of those campaign groupings in Google AdWords, we would go in and set up ad groups that target desktops and mobile. So we will split those. For Legally Blonde, partly because of the demographic is a little bit younger than the typical musical, we've set 30% as our budget for mobile. So we're splitting our overall search budget to make sure that we're capturing people on their mobile phones. Okay, so let's move on to talk about what else Google does. So Google also runs a display network. So most people think of Google as just search because it's such a strong brand and everybody associates search with Google that I think it's easy to forget that there's so much more than that. Google Display Network is Australia and New Zealand's biggest ad network. Every month they reach between 70 to 90% of all internet users. They have many millions of websites that you can advertise on, plus 400% more ads on niche sites than any other ad network. They offer on all of those sites text ads, image ads, video ads, and then mobile ads. So this is, for example, let me maybe take you back a step here. So they're selling inventory on other websites, and that includes the major media sites like New Zealand Herald. So any person operating a website could join the Google Display Network and say, I'm going to sell my ad inventory using the Google Display Network. And then you come along as an advertiser and you bid on that inventory. So you say, yes, I'm interested in reaching that audience, and this is how much I'm prepared to spend per click to reach them. So using that ad exchange formula, they have massive, massive reach. Text ads, so it's not just text ads on search, Google search, it's text ads that you might have seen on other sites, like New Zealand Herald in this example. There's image ads, so your standard medium rectangle, leaderboards, skyscrapers, whatever size and dimension you want, depending on the website. There's video ads, so interactive video ad units. And there's mobile ads, so very, very small mobile banners. These are quite difficult to actually set up. The big issue that we have with mobile ads is just getting our ads, the ad images, small enough because the file sizes that Google take are tiny. So, for example, 3 kilobyte ad. It's really hard to actually crunch images down that small. So Google offer lots of targeting options that help you plan your campaign that will work for your audience. Some of these options are Google Search, which we've spoken about, and I'm sure you are all familiar with. You can also target based on interest categories, so you can target by placement, so pick the sites an audience likes. You can use contextual targeting, topic targeting, remarketing, and also YouTube. So just to explain some of these options, let's say in the past I have visited an arts and entertainment website. Then Google says, okay, we know you are interested in arts and entertainment. So in the cookie and information that they have about you, they know you're interested in that, so they can show you relevant ads. Placement targeting, so you can pick sites in particular that you choose based on your own research that you've done. Contextual targeting, you can place your ads next to similar content based on keywords or themes. So, for example, let's say you're advertising cricket balls, then you can place your ads next to pages talking about cricket. So that might be right across the web. That might be a news story about cricket. Let's place the ad there. It might be a blog about cricket. Let's place the ad there. Placement targeting, interest categories on the other hand, could be your cricket ad could appear on a page about a page on Ticketmaster, for example. So it's just that we know that you're interested in cricket. It doesn't matter what site you're actually on at the time. Topic targeting is about advertising something where it's most relevant. Remarketing is about reconnecting people, and I'll talk a little bit about some remarketing case studies later on. And then YouTube, Google owns YouTube, so it offers a great opportunity there for you to target relevant YouTube content. I'll talk a lot more about that in the second half. These are just some of the options on the Google Display Network. So a text ad in the top left, various sizes of static image ads, flash ads, or animated GIFs, video ads, and then clickable overlays. So the size really depends on your targeted placement. So which targeting methods do we value the most and why? This is interesting, this little chart that I've got based on what agencies value the most, and it's very, very similar actually to what we value the most here. All of these options in the Google Display Network can be bewildering. So where do you start? You start definitely at what you value the most, what's going to be the most effective. So for us, we definitely start on the right-hand side. Remarketing delivers the best results, so let's start there. Then move across to the left. Probably don't worry about day part advertising. I don't think it's very relevant for us. But you see audience-based targeting, then interest, then contextual, then location. So it gives you an idea for what techniques available in Google's suite of targeting methods might be the most effective. So now we come back to our idea of choreography. So how do we choreograph the online advertising into our campaign? For us, digital advertising is very much about a sequence or a combination and how those things work together. So we're never doing online in isolation. TV and online work very well together. And I'll talk about how we use TV and YouTube together in the second half. Publicity and online, how they work well together. So how publicity might work with remarketing, for example, how press and online work well together, and how mobile works well. So talking about publicity, here's one recent example. So Legally Blonde and the State of Origin. The challenge for us was to make the most of Lucy's performance at the State of Origin. So Lucy Durack, the star of Legally Blonde, was singing the anthem at the State of Origin. How do we turn that performance into ticket sales? And how do we get long-term lift out of a very short-term spike? So you'll see, let's bring up the rest of that page. So for Legally Blonde and State of Origin, we had a massive spike in traffic as a result of that appearance. A huge interest on that particular day, lots of people visiting the website. But the problem for us is that, well, how do we actually get more leverage out of that one single spike that lasts maybe 2 days? How do we actually get more out of, say, Facebook? We have Facebook posts, just organic posts around that appearance on State of Origin. But after 2-3 days, the click-through rates declined where, we're invisible again. It's gone. The opportunity's passed. So what we did around the State of Origin was actually used a number of advertising strategies to actually leverage that appearance and make sure that we could come back to those people in future. We placed ads on Facebook targeting rugby league fans on Facebook so that they could make the connection at the time between the appearance on the TV and the show. One of the important trends that's happening here is that television is a two-screen activity, so it's always television. When you're watching, you're sitting there with your iPad, with your phone or your laptop and doing something online at the same time. So whenever we have a major TV appearance like that, we make sure we have a presence online to capture that click at the same time. The other important thing to do at that point is to tag for remarketing. So Google offers a fantastic remarketing tool that lets you tag people to actually reach them later on. So when we have a major publicity event, we'll make sure that remarketing tag is in place so that we can come back and talk more to people later on as we might have new messages. Now, I've got some very specific examples for Legally Blonde later about how well that's working. So during this Facebook campaign that we ran for Legally Blonde and the State of Origin, the click-through rate was 0.51%. The cost per click was 68 cents. We increased web traffic over that period by 195%. The mobile traffic as a percentage was 35%, and the Facebook traffic increased by 300%. So it was a very successful but very short-term campaign. So in terms of our campaign budget, we were just on Facebook for 5 days. That's it. One quick burst, probably cost $1,000 at the most, but we knew that we had to make the most of that opportunity. Now, I think we'll break for some questions now before I dive into the more case studies.
So Rae, we already have one question. What's the cost of a minimum ad campaign via Google Display Network in New Zealand? So, for example, a 4-week theatre season.
Okay, so with the Google Display Network, there's no minimum spend. Same as Facebook, no minimum spend. It's the question I get asked the most, is how much do we need? I would say you can dip your toe in the water for $500. That's all you need to spend. Obviously, if it's working for you, I'd suggest you then spend more, but you don't need to commit a large budget to it. You definitely don't. In fact, I'd recommend you start small, pay very close attention to a campaign, and monitor it, check your results, optimize it, change it, try different ad formats, all of those sorts of things in the short term before you go and commit to spending a larger amount of money.
That's great. Thank you, Rae. We're actually running about 10 minutes over time, so I wonder if it might be a good idea just to continue with the second half, and we can take the rest of the questions at the end.
Okay, no problem.
So we probably need to stop in about, well, we probably need to stop about 25 past to get the questions in, if that's all right.
Okay, no problem.
Great.
All right, so moving right along. So remarketing. So this Google remarketing tools are fantastic, and I really recommend you take a look. Remarketing's been around for a while, but Google's always making changes to them, and one of the very recent changes that they've introduced is allowing you to remarket based on your YouTube video channel. So if you're producing lots of video content for shows and events, you can link now your YouTube video channel to your Google AdWords account, which will enable you to remarket to people who've watched those videos in the past. For setting up your remarketing code, to get started, if you go into AdWords and look down the left-hand side for what's called the shared library, in that column there you can choose audiences, and that's where you would set up your tag for remarketing. So what I mean by that is that you would go there to set up a piece of code that you place on your website in the header that then tags people who visit your site for later remarketing. For a venue, you might set up remarketing code for specific event pages. Ideally, what you would do is set up remarketing code based on people who actually made it through to complete a purchase, or those who, say, abandoned a shopping cart partway through. So it's a very powerful marketing method. Here's an example of a campaign that we're running right now, actually, for Legally Blonde. So based on those previous visits that we had from State of Origin and other publicity over the last, I think, 60 days, we're collecting data, remarketing data. We have about 6,000 people on our remarketing list. So how does it work? So people visit the Legally Blonde site, then say 2 weeks later they're browsing and shopping on a website, dreaming of maybe buying a new pair of shoes, something completely irrelevant perhaps. Then up pops an ad for Legally Blonde. Now this time the ad says, oh, we open in just 2 weeks, or this time the ad says, oh, hey, we have a $69 price. So we're constantly refreshing that remarketing message to actually entice people back to the site to complete the purchase. The campaign results for remarketing for Legally Blonde so far: a click-through rate of 0.1%, a cost per click of $1.22, and a conversion rate of 16.3%. Here's another example, this one actually from a recent Broadway musical campaign in New York City. They used a combination over there of Facebook advertising plus remarketing. So you don't have to use just Google advertising methods in combination. You can also use social marketing with remarketing. The conversion rate estimate for them is about 6 to 7%. So they've given their figures there in dollar figures. You'll see they spent $1,700. So that's a combination of the money they spent on Facebook advertising plus remarketing. They generated $11,000 in sales for a total profit from that campaign of $9,000. Now moving along to YouTube. So YouTube is something that we're doing. YouTube advertising is something that we're doing more and more. It's a very effective medium for arts because I think because of that, the interactive formats, obviously, yes, video is a great way to actually sell the performing arts in particular. Here's an example of some of the placement options that you have available on YouTube. You have a companion medium rectangle, which is that square space that sits on the top right-hand side. There's an example there of what's called a promoted video, so that's another ad format. Whenever you do, excuse me, YouTube advertising, you can do a video overlay or text banner that sits over the top of the ad. And then, of course, there's pre-roll, so that is the 15-second video of yours that might play before they reach the video that they want to actually play. It's quite interruptive, that kind of pre-roll advertising, but I will tell you it works incredibly well. There's some amazing research that Google and others have done about how well video advertising works in combination with TV. So for us, that's the combination that we normally use. For Legally Blonde, here's an example of a campaign that we're running on YouTube in New Zealand at the moment. We've segmented our campaign into two pieces. There's a brand segment, which is people watching Legally Blonde brand-related material, and then there's a musicals segment. So you can see here the number of video views. CPV is the cost per view. So in this case on Google, you're paying every time someone views your video. For us in the brand segment, that's 7 cents, so it's incredibly cheap. From that, website clicks. So from that ad, that viewing of the video, they can actually click on an overlay, so the little piece of text and message that overlays the video. So you can see 1,000 people actually clicked through after viewing the video to the website. That click-through rate is 10.2%, which is great. It's interesting actually that for us 9% really would be typical in Australia, so this New Zealand campaign did quite well. And the cost per click of 66 cents, so it's terrific value. And we haven't spent a lot of money on this. We're talking maybe $1,500 in total on these two segments is all we've spent. Similar results there for the musical segment, and for both of these a conversion rate in the end of 9.24%. CPT is a term that I've come up with that I use and find useful. It's a cost per ticket. So in this case, $4 to sell each ticket. Here are some more examples of video campaigns that we've run using the Google network. This is a Tap Dogs campaign where we used video in display. So that's not video on YouTube, it's actually video elsewhere on other sites in the Google Display Network. We had a click-through rate of 2.57% and a cost per click of 62 cents. And here's another example. This was for Jersey Boys. We ran a YouTube promoted video in New Zealand with a click-through rate of 1.9% and a cost per click of 23 cents. So I hope you're getting an understanding of how inexpensive it can be. Now, I promised one traditional display case study. This one is very much the exception. This was a New Zealand Herald Christmas campaign that we ran for Jersey Boys. We paid for this small placement based on the number of impressions. So number of impressions for a set period of time, which I think was about 2 weeks in November, December last year. And these are the results from that campaign. But I will say these are not typical results for a display campaign. We'd normally get many less clicks and many less conversions from a display campaign. This one's interesting. We've all chatted at length about it here in the team because the results were so different to what we've seen for other campaigns, and I think that's really about context. It's really drawing on that similar idea of Google about how context is important. Now, Facebook advertising, so I won't dwell too much on this. I'll leave you with this information about Facebook in Australia. Facebook advertising offers you many, many targeting options. The options are virtually endless, and so are the ad formats. So here are some examples. You have friend ads, You can post a video to your page on Facebook and then push that out as an ad. You can post a photo album or single photo and then push that out as an ad. And there's also Facebook like ads, so ads that are about driving traffic to your website, as well as ads that are about building your fan base. For us, how we go about whether we use those different formats really depends on our goal and also the time period. So if we're talking about something that's very, very long term, like say South Pacific that's doing a national tour going on for many, many months, even a year, then we'll be interested in building the fan base. But for other events that are much more short-term campaign, we're more focused on driving traffic direct to the website to purchase. Here's an example of a campaign that we ran for Sir David Attenborough. Like I said earlier, we discovered there was a massive fan base on Facebook of 97,000 people. So we used this to very much determine the market in different capital cities for the producer in this case, and actually inform their planning for the tour. We placed this ad on Facebook. The result, we went from 0 to 9,000 fans in just 3 months. We sold out the Australian tour almost entirely based on Facebook advertising, and here are the campaign statistics. It was very, very inexpensive and a great success. One of the other things I'd recommend you do with your Facebook advertising is always make sure you socialise it. So one of the great things about Facebook advertising is you can use the like ads to help people to find friends who might like the same thing. So help them to find friends who might also like to go to your event. By running Facebook like ads at the same time in combination. So we always do the two in combination, Facebook like ads together with the website or other Facebook ad formats. By doing that, we get 2.6 times the result, double the click-through rate, the conversion rate is 30% higher, and it's 20% cheaper to acquire the fans and clicks. Here's an example of a campaign we ran for Jersey Boys Facebook. In this case, it was a combined ad, so they could click through to the website. That was the primary call to action, but it also included a like option at the bottom of the ad. These are our primary measures, so we got 1,041 new fans. We had 3,000 clicks to the website, a conversion rate of 7.2%. About 7% is fairly typical for us, actually. I'm going to skip over this because we're a little bit short on time. I want to make sure we talk about this one. Here are the Facebook ad benchmarks. I hope you can come back and refer to these results later on because I think they're very valuable. These are indicators of how much you might need to spend. So the cost per fan, how much it's likely to cost you if your goal is building fans. The conversion rate, so how much you should expect the number of fans based on the number of clicks. And at what point you might stop. So if you're only getting a 15% conversion rate, then it's not worth continuing with the campaign. Also benchmarks there for a click-through rate, and then in the bottom right, our results. I've also included some benchmarks there for general display advertising for New Zealand, which you can refer to. I think that's all for me. We've run out of time. I've got some additional resources there that you can click through at the end of the presentation. And do we have any time for questions, or have we run out of time, Jackie?
That was absolutely fantastic, Rae. It was a really brilliant presentation. We've got a few questions. So Aaron has asked, with the Google Display Network, is there any guidance available either from Google, local reps or others, or do you just have to muck in and work it out for yourselves?
There are some fantastic resources. So actually on this useful resources slide that I have up now, I recommend you take a look at the Google Display Network Ad Planner. It has some great tools for working out how you might structure that campaign. So you can put in examples of your demographic targeting, of your interest targeting, and see what kind of sites Google Display might recommend that you place your ads on. So it's a great tool. There's also the AdWords Benchmarks and Insights is a great way to actually learn more about the Google Ad Network. They have so many terrific videos and case studies on there. That's a great place to start.
Brilliant. So we have another question about the Jersey Boys Facebook campaign. How long was it to get 1,000 plus likes?
Okay, Jersey Boys Facebook, I think perhaps about 4 weeks in that case. Likes, I might just say, was not the primary objective. It was more about the clicks itself. But yes,
Great.
about 4 weeks.
Brilliant. Okay, and another question. Some lovely feedback saying thanks for that, great. And Vicky is interested in differentiating mobile and web, especially when you noted that the combination, I'm finding it hard to read the question, of online plus, is it the formatting difference in how the content is served or in the age demographic of your target audience? Vicky might be able to clarify that question if she wants to just ask the question in person.
Yes, please, Vicky, clarify. While she's coming online.
Hello, it's Vicky here. I was really interested in you saying when you were talking about how running ads plus online, so in your different types of media, print, web, TV, how plus online was a mobile plus online, which, because I would have thought that mobile was really just another way for people to be accessing online. So I was interested in why you split that out, whether it was about the formatting of the content or whether it was about your actual demographics, particularly for musicals.
Yes, you know what? I actually think I had that in the wrong place on that slide. So it really should have been over the right-hand side as an online method, if that makes more sense.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it does make more sense to me. It just sort of stood out for me that it was.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to there and I thought, that's in the wrong place, but I'll just forge ahead. Yeah, so definitely we would think about mobile advertising as something that we would do in combination with, say, publicity. Let's say we have a major media event, a media call, and we're expecting lots of TV, then we do mobile advertising at the same time. If we have a major above-the-line campaign, let's say lots of TV bursts, then we'd schedule mobile advertising at the same time. I think the key thing to remember here is for us, we can't, with many of our shows where we have a very long campaign period of, say, 8 months or more for some of them, and we can't afford to actually be in the marketplace with our online campaign for that entire time. So our approach is very much around timing those bursts and making sure that we have online happening at the same time as other activity. We usually sort of extend them, so we might have a TV burst for 1 week where we also run YouTube advertising, but then the YouTube might continue on for 1 week after that and then stop. So that gives you an idea of how we might plan it.
That's great, thank you. We've had some lovely feedback saying you're an excellent presenter and it was a great presentation and it's one of the best so far, so that's really fantastic.
Thank you, people.
Look, thank you so much, Rae. Is there anything you wanted to say and wrap up?
No, look, I'm sorry I ran out of a little bit of time there to run over those case studies, but look, at least you have them there. You can refer back to them and have a look at those results. And you've got on the final slide my contact details, so please, if you have any questions afterwards, send me an email. Let's chat some more.
Brilliant. Well, we're getting lots of really positive feedback in the Q&A section, so that's really fantastic. And thanks so much for taking the time to share your extraordinary expertise with us. It's really fantastic, Rae. To everybody else, thank you so much for attending our webinar series, and a particular big thanks to Vicky Allpress-Hill for putting the entire series together. She's done a really fantastic job, and it's been a wonderful series. In a couple of days, we'll be sending out a survey about the webinar series, and we'd really love to get your feedback, particularly because all of the audience and market development programs are being reviewed at the moment, and we're just looking at what will continue in the next year. So if you've been enjoying the webinars, we'd really love to hear from you and to hear what topics you might like in future. It will be really useful for us to have that feedback to feed into the review. So thank you so much for attending, and thank you very, very much to Vicky and to Rae. Take care. Thanks.